go.
Welcome everybody. Hold on 1 second. Okay, welcome to the Listen Program podcast, created and produced by HS Botha Productions, and in collaboration with the World of Ability Podcast Network. The show is hosted by Dr. Shen Botha and will take a deep dive into the work which led to the making of the program and what it's all about over the next 5 months. We're excited to invite fresh voices and thought leaders to the show in 2025, and more announcements will be made towards the end of this year. And so I'm happy to hand it over to Sean to kick us off. First ever episode. So welcome, Sean.
Awesome, thank you, Emily. Hello, everybody. I'm excited to be here. As Emily's explained, I'm Sean, and I am the brain behind the Listen program and HS Botha Productions here in Sydney, Australia. So I'm really excited to share a lot of the stuff that I've learned around listening deeper and the origins of the work that I've done over the last 9 years. But I mean, it feels like more than 9 years. It feels like my entire life because I'm obsessed with music and have been since I was a kid. So for me, of course, everything that I do is always about placing focus on the work and the value that it brings to others. It's not about me, but sometimes you kind of need to know who the person is who made all of this stuff. So here's a short introduction into who I am. So I was born and raised in South Africa. I'm a qualified registered nurse. I was trained as a midwife, community nurse, general nurse, and a psychiatric nurse. So it means that my understanding of the human body and its relationship to our brain and how we live is quite comprehensive. If we then throw on top of that another layer of work, it's my music and my writing. I've been a musician my entire life. I play guitar, piano. I love composing new music and not using music scores. I love any form of storytelling, whether it's a movie, a good book, a good research project, and everything else in between. So when we're looking at origins of the Listen program, we're starting with my doctoral research that I did at Western Sydney University in Australia. And I did that under the guidance of Associate Professor Diana Blom and Dr. Claire McLean. Dr. Ian Stevenson also had a role to play when it came to putting up a brand new concept of brand new music here in the western suburbs of the Sydney region. It was a lot of fun and I learned a lot. So when we're looking at those building blocks of the work, we're looking at sound and silence. And sound and silence is something that a lot of people tend to talk about. And I always think to myself, so what is our relationship to sound and silence? How do we work with it? How do we live with it? And that's where the Listen program came into the conversation. So I started looking at silence and I thought to myself, so where does it take me? Where does it come from? So for me to really understand it, I had to look at the work of American composer John Cage. He visited an anechoic chamber at Harvard University in 1951, and he was in search of silence. That's why he went into that chamber. But what he found was not silence. He was hearing sounds, and the two sounds that he was actually hearing was one very high sound and one low sound. And he actually explains in his writings that the low sound was his blood in circulation, and the high-pitched sound that he was hearing was his nervous system. And this is partly the reason why he coined the phrase, there is no such thing as silence. It does not exist. And this is my main reason why I prefer to speak of stillness. And that is because it's the moments of quiet in between the sound that carries the most weight and importance. And the stillness between and even inside sounds is one of the main reasons why I created the listening program. But to understand the program, there's somebody else that I have to mention, and that is American composer and performer Pauline Oliveros. So she developed deep listening. So it means we're going deeper than the surface on which we all listen, but there's other layers underneath that. And that's what it means when we're going deeper with our listening practice. So Pauline Oliveros says that deep listening is
recording in progress
practice. She explains also that the more she listened, the more she learned to listen. So I'm going to read a quote here for you. It says, where she actually explains that deep listening involves going below the surface of what is heard, expanding to the whole field of sound while finding focus. This is the way to connect with the acoustic environment, all that inhabits it, and all that there is. And that is what it really strikes you when you really think about it. When we're listening and we're going deeper, we're listening to things that we might not always pay attention to when we're driving from point A to point B. We're listening for the smallest sound in space that grabs our attention. And that's where the program connects with these smaller moments, which in a weird and wonderful way creates stillness, the brain. So for me, it means that deep listening helped me to understand the connection between sound and stillness. So, and I've said this in a previous presentation, where we find stillness, sound will follow. And where we find sound, stillness will follow. It means that both sound and stillness is so connected and it's so integral to one another that we cannot separate it from each other because they work in tandem. They work in tandem with one another in a piece of music, and they work in tandem with one another in our everyday lives. So when I'm looking at these ideas, I have more questions than answers. So the question for me becomes, how do we work with the sounds around us in our daily lives? How do we engage with the stillness that we are confronted with in our daily lives? So in my head, I'm thinking that I'm not the only one looking for stillness. There must be other people around who is looking for it as well. But for me to be able to find it, I need to listen. And for anybody else around me who is seeking that stillness, they also need to be willing to listen. So it's that willingness to step outside of what we think we already know. And I find a lot of people say that, but they know how to listen, they do it every day. But I think sometimes we take it for granted because how we listen is something that we were born with. It's a natural skill. And sometimes as life gets faster, our ability to listen, it changes shape. And it's the same way for sound, it changes shape depending on where it's going, depending on what we're doing with it. And it's the same with listening. It changes, it depends on what we're doing with it. So in a weird way, it's about learning how to listen in a different way, learning how to listen with depth, learning how to listen with meaning. And so these are all ideas and concepts that I've worked on over a long period of time, not just during my doctoral research. So when we really break listening down, we're breaking it down into sound, stillness, depth, meaning, focus, and energy. So all of these ideas then feeds into my neurodiverse brain, and I think this is the big key element that I never knew I had, and how much my brain needed it. And that's how that component of my life connects up with the Listen program, and that is that my brain craved a way to focus. It was looking for a way to get 5 minutes of quiet, 5 minutes of breathing space before my brain went back on working on 100 cylinders 24 hours a day. And I know many neurodiverse people would feel exactly the same way. Your brain just does not stop. And this is where the Listen program is quite unique. It offers countless approaches to how we work and function with the sounds around us. Um, when I call it the Listen program, it sounds like it's something really fancy, but it's not. It's this very simple process of 7 steps, and it takes on this wonderful multisensory and multi-dimensional approach to life, but also to how we listen and how we help our brain and body to connect. So I want to take you back to the touch points that I mentioned a few moments ago. We're looking at energy, our external environment, how we focus, and our ability to absorb, filter out, and engage with the sounds around us. Again, I just want to rehash this and recap this for you. Why did I create this program? Because why? The way I analyzed the music for my research project took me deeper than I expected. It helped me to listen deeper. It helped me to focus. It helped me to sleep better. It reduced the noise in my head to a low roar, and I was able to find stillness. And I was able to find stillness to such an extent that I cannot write a book or a story with music on anymore. I need stillness now because I'm comfortable in the stillness. And if I can help other people to find that kind of stillness so that they can be creative, so that they can be the best versions of themselves, so that they can thrive, then I've done what I'm meant to do with my life. And, and I think this is the thing. All of us want to create meaning. We want to fulfill those skills and desires that we were all born with. And that is what I want for everybody else. Balance, peace, deep rest, and in the long run, healthier relationships with those around us. So I want to give you a little bit more context around the depth of the work, and that is the fact that all these ideas that I've just mentioned took me down into the world of physics as well, quantum physics to be precise. And it took me into this space where I was asking, what am I finding in empty space? And that empty space then connects back up with my obsession and love for music, because that is where the idea of empty space was mentioned for the first time when I was looking into silence or stillness. It's the fact that it sits in an empty space where anything and everything is possible. And where anything is possible, we need to be willing to listen. And when we're really listening, what we're doing is what I was doing during my research. I was trying to find the beginning and end of the sound, the beginning and end of stillness. But then I was also looking for how long does that sound stretch for how long does the stillness stretch, and where does it end, and does it end? Does the sound end? Does the stillness end? And even though I finished my research, I found that the real answer is no. Sound does not end, and stillness does not end. It stays there, it stays in the background, and it creates these traces of itself. And it's as if a part of yourself takes it with you no matter where you go. And it talks to you. The sound, it talks to you. The stillness, it talks to you. The question is that, are we listening to the sound? Are we listening to the stillness? And what are we willing to do or set aside to find those answers? Because there's no one answer to the question. There are multiple answers and multiple possibilities to what the sound of the stillness is communicating to you. And those ideas and concepts is what I want to show you over the next couple of months before I bring in guest speakers and other people who are extremely well versed in similar fields of thought. Because the more we can pull together what we know, the more we learn. And I think that's what it's about. It's about how much can I learn about myself, about my environment, about the people in my life, and how do I then take what I've learned and apply that to life itself. Because at the end of the day, listening creates community. It creates a sense of belonging. It creates a sense of being heard. And I think all of us want to be heard on every level imaginable. I know I wanted that my entire life. And I can tell you now, there were days where I felt like I wasn't being heard at all as I was growing up because I didn't know I was neurodiverse. And I can imagine it's the same for so many other people. So if I can help you and anybody and everybody who's open to learning more, to dig deeper through the Listen program, then I've done my job. So I think the main thing for today is to take away the idea that sound and stillness work together, and that both these ideas and concepts have a direct impact on our daily life and our conversations and relationships. So my challenge to you is a couple of things. I want you to ask yourself, what am I willing to let go of so that I can learn more about myself? And what am I willing to learn? And how deep am I willing to go with my listening? And the reason for that is that if we don't practice our listening skills, we need to ask ourselves, what's going to happen with my relationships and the people in my life? And what would my life look like without being able to really listen? And therein lies the challenge. The challenge is to really focus in on what matters. What do you feel the most drawn to? And what you feel drawn to, how does that make you feel? How does sound make you feel? How does the sound of a bird singing outside your window make you feel? How does the stillness make you feel? And where do you want to be within your relationships if you are willing to go deeper with your listening on a day-to-day basis? So for the next couple of weeks, I want you to find sounds and moments that you feel connected to in your immediate environment. And find quiet moments that you feel you can attach yourself to, and see where it takes you. And if you can't, this is where the program comes in handy. You can engage with the program on so many different platforms, but the two main places where you can find the program is YouTube and Facebook. And on YouTube, it's at the Listen program, or even at Botha Film. I will include those links and attach that to this episode of the podcast. And then there's also HS Botha Productions, which is my own business that I created in the middle of the pandemic. And through HS Botha Productions, you'll see a lot of content coming out that's attached to the Listen program and is attached to soundtracks that's also created that you can use to practice the Listen program. And I will include all of those links for you that you can explore and listen to. And I look forward to seeing you next month. It's the last month, not the last month, it's the last Monday of every month at 10 a.m. And I look forward to seeing you back here. Thank you.